Reliever Roundup and Bullpen Bonanza is brought to you by Sport Relay. Honest, unbiased, and apolitical. Sport Relay, your connection to the diamond. And by A Complete History of the Major League Baseball Playoffs, Volumes 1 and 2, by Evan Thompson. Relive the glory. A Complete History of the Major League Baseball Playoffs.
This week on Reliever Roundup and Bullpen Bonanza, we introduce two new segments, Meltdown Anatomy and Deadbolt Delivered. Week 22 and 23 Team Power Rankings. Relief Rankings of Playoff Hopefuls. And the Week 23 Individual Power Rankings. Don't go away! Reliever Roundup and Bullpen Bonanza begins now. Welcome to Reliever Roundup and Bullpen Bonanza. I'm your host, Evan Thompson, Editor-in-Chief, National Writer, and Athletics Writer at Sport Relay. I also wrote these two books, A Complete History of the Major League Baseball Playoffs, Volume 1, The Pre-Divisional Tiebreakers through 1976, and Volume 2, 1977 through 1984. Volume 2 also includes the 1978 AL East Tiebreaker, the Bucky Dent game, and the 1980 NL West tiebreaker, the Joe Niekro game. If you are interested in ordering a copy or two, there are links in the description box below this video. It's getting exciting out there. Magic numbers are getting into the single digits. The Brewers and Phillies have already clinched a playoff spot. We're filming this on Sunday the 14th, and the Phillies could clinch the NL East tomorrow. But we also have some neck-and-neck races, like the three-team derby in the American League West and the American League East, as well as the two-team battle in the National League West. There is going to be some tense, exciting baseball in the days to come. And of course, bullpens are going to make a difference. Now, let's take a look at some of the top stories from the world of relief pitching. For our top story, we are going to introduce a new segment. Here at Reliever Roundup and Bullpen Bonanza, we don't just track the goose eggs. We autopsy the implosions. And in this episode, we're going big. A triple feature of relief bedlam. First, we will visit Seattle, where the Braves turned a late-inning tie into a slow-burn collapse against the Mariners. Then we head to the Bronx for a 9-spot detonation that left the Yanks relief corps in ruins. And finally, the gut punch in Baltimore, where the Dodgers were 1 out away from a no-hitter, had a 3-run lead, and still found a way to lose without the game going to extra innings. 3 games, 3 meltdowns, 3 very different paths to the same ugly ending. It's time for Meltdown Anatomy. September 6th, Braves, Mariners, T-Mobile Park, Seattle, Washington. The Braves, August's National League Relief Corps of the Month, entered the 7th with a coin flip shot at winning. 15 minutes later, their chances were smoldering ruins. Daysbel Hernandez's outing went from tense to tragic in the space of 6 batters. A leadoff single, a productive out, and then Julio Rodriguez's 2-run dagger. By the time Eugenio Suarez added his solo shot, the inning had turned into a full-blown relief disaster. Hayden Harris tried to stop the bleeding, but the Mariners kept the line moving, and by the end of the frame, Atlanta's win expectancy had fallen off a cliff from 50% to 7%. In summation, Julio Rodriguez lit the fuse, Eugenio Suarez poured on the gasoline, and by the time the dust settled, Atlanta's chances were all but gone. Now, before I continue, let me make sure everyone understands win expectancy. Win expectancy is not your odds of winning are 60% based on like some odds a bookie makes in Vegas or something. That's not what it is at all. No. Here's what win expectancy is. Before I explain win expectancy, I got to explain something to you called base out situation. There are 8 possibilities for where runners are in baseball. 8 possible combinations. You have bases empty, runner on first, runner on second, runner on third, runners on first and second, runners on second and third, runners on the corners, and bases loaded. So there's 8. And you have each of those base runner setups with 0 outs, 1 out, or 2 outs. 8 times 3 is 24. So there are 24 base out possibilities. What win expectancy does is it takes the base out situation, the inning the game is in, and what the score differential is. And the score differential, they always do it from the perspective of the home team. So +2 means the home team is ahead by 2 runs. 0 is it's a tie game. -2 means the home team is behind by 2 runs. Okay, so they take the base out situation, the inning, and the score differential. They look at all the games we have record of all the way back, well over 100 years, and they figure out what percentage of the time a team in that base out situation, in that inning, with that score differential, goes on to win the game. Obviously, the only time the win expectancy is 100% is when the game is over. There was an ignoramus online one time that I saw who made fun of this stat, going, "Oh, you needed a stat to tell you that the win expectancy when the game ends is 100%? No, that's not it at all. We don't need a stat to tell us that. We know that. The whole point of the win expectancy being 100% when the game is over is it's a reference point. Obviously, that's the only time win expectancy is 100. So, you understand win expectancy now? Good. On to the first game. Meltdown Anatomy. Braves versus Mariners, September 6th, 2025. The score entering the inning was a 2-2 tie. The pitcher at the start of the inning was Deadbolt Hernandez of the Braves. It was a high leverage situation. Tie game, 7th inning. There was a clean slate. It was the very beginning of the inning. There was nobody on, there was nobody out. The first batter was Randy Arozarena. On a 1-0 count, he singled to right. The win expectancy shift went from 50% chance of winning for the Braves, and it dropped it to 44%. Leadoff base runner in a tie game, alarm bells start ringing. Not good, not good. Second batter was Cal Raleigh, somebody you don't even want to face with the bases empty, let alone a runner on first. He flied to deep center on a 1-0 count. Arozarena tagged up and advanced to second. The win expectancy there for the Braves shifted from 44% to 47%. This was a productive out. Runner was now in scoring position, but there's 1 out. Third batter was Julio Rodriguez. On a full count, he rips a 2-run homer to deep center. The win expectancy for the Braves shifted from 47% to 20% on that one swing. This was the turning point. It went from deadlock to a 2-run hole in one swing. Fourth batter, Josh Naylor. First pitch, he grounded back to the pitcher. So the Braves' win expectancy shifted from 20% to 21%. It's a brief reprieve, but inning's not over. Next batter, the fifth batter of the inning, Eugenio Suarez, on an 0-1 count, blasted a solo home run down the left field line. The Braves' win expectancy on this play went from 21% to 12%. Nearly back-to-back power punches, and we now have a 3-run deficit for the Braves. At this point, the Braves made a pitching change. Hernandez was out, Hayden Harris came in, bases empty, 2 outs, Braves are down 5-2. First batter he faced, the sixth batter of the inning, was Jorge Polanco. On the 2-1 count, double left. Win expectancy for the Braves went from 12% to 11%. Now the Mariners smell blood. Seventh batter of the inning, J.P. Crawford. 2-1 count, single to center. Polanco scores. Braves win expectancy went from 11% to 6%. This was the knockout blow. It's now 6-2 Mariners. They need a grand slam just to tie the game. Eighth batter of the inning, Victor Robles. 3-2 count, walk. Win expectancy stayed the change in win expectancy was so minor that it rounded to 6%. Both of them were 6%. Ninth batter of the inning, Leo Rivas. 0-2 count, he flied to deep center. The win expectancy for the Braves went from 6% to 7% right there with the end of the inning.
Damage report, Mr. Spock.
4 runs allowed. All of them were earned runs charged to Hernandez. 5 hits, including 2 home runs. The win expectancy drop for the Braves went from 50% to 7% in 1/2 inning. That's a 43-point collapse. As far as goose egg, broken egg, or meh classification, this was a broken egg for Hernandez. 7th inning of a tie game, he gave up earned runs, did not close out the win for his team in that inning. That's a broken egg. But that was not the only gigantic meltdown of the week. Let us turn now to the 7th inning of the Yankees-Tigers game from September 9th. It started with a ground rule double, and ended with the Yankees relief corps wearing a 9 spot like a scarlet letter. You like that Nathaniel Hawthorne reference there? Huh? Yeah. Fernando Cruz could not find the zone, Mark Leiter Jr. couldn't find an out, and by the time Tim Hill stopped the bleeding, the Tigers had turned a tense tie game into a laugher. Meltdown anatomy. Top of the 7th inning, Detroit Tigers at New York Yankees. Here's the situation. 2-2 tie, Tigers batting. The Yankees' Fernando Cruz started the inning facing the heart of their order, the 4-5-6 hitters. Here's the trigger point. Riley Green hit a leadoff ground rule double. At that point, with that one swing of the bat, the Yankees' win expectancy went from 50% and fell 11 points to 39%, and it just kept going. Leadoff extra base hits instantly spike leverage in tie games. And then from that point on, Cruz never recorded a single out. Here's our cascade sequence. Walk to Spencer Torkelson. Now there's 2 on, nobody out. Walk to Win Perez. Bases loaded, still nobody out. Parker Meadows, RBI single, first run scored, bases still loaded. Dylan Dingler walk forces in run number 2 of the inning. At this point, there's a pitching change. Mark Leiter Jr. comes in, inherits the bases loaded with nobody out. And Trey Sweeney hit an infield single. That brought in the 3rd run of the inning, and the bags were still juiced. Colt Keith got drilled. 4th run of the inning, bases still loaded. Gleyber Torres walked. 5th run of the inning, bases are still loaded. Here comes a wild pitch. That brings in the 6th run. Now there are runners on 2nd and 3rd. And here comes the dagger. A Kerry Carpenter 2-run triple. That brought in the 7th and 8th runs of the inning. Still nobody out. In comes Tim Hill. Runner on 3rd, nobody out. Riley Green grounded out to make the first out of the inning. Here's the thing. The Tigers batted all the way around without committing a single out. After Green, he's Spencer Torkelson. Intentional walk, put runners on the corners with 1 out. They've got the double play intact now. But Win Perez hit an RBI ground out to score the 9th run of the inning. Then Parker Meadows singled, putting 2 on with 2 outs. And the inning came to a merciful end when Dylan Dingler grounded out.
Damage report, Mr. Spock.
Mark Leiter Jr. inherited 3 runners. All of them scored. Tim Hill inherited 1 runner. He scored. As far as goose eggs and broken eggs go, there was actually only 1 in the entire inning because there was only 1 possible. Fernando Cruz got a broken egg because he did not record any outs. He allowed at least 1 earned run. It was a tie game when he started, and it did not come, this earned run, in an inning where he closed out the win for his team. Leiter Jr. had no goose egg chance because the team was already behind, but he definitely poured gasoline on the fire, and that did his statistics no favors whatsoever. Tim Hill also had no goose egg chance. At this point, it was just a low leverage mop-up situation. And I'm not trying to be dismissive of the situation. I'm just saying this was not a high leverage situation by the time Tim Hill came into the game. The win expectancy swing. In this 1 half inning, the Yankees' win expectancy plummeted from 50% to 0. It wasn't exactly 0 because, again, that can only happen when the game's over, but it was 0 point something, and that point something rounded down to 0. And keep in mind, it had fallen all the way to near 0 before the Yankees had even recorded an out. How many runners reached? The first 9 Tigers in a row, like I mentioned, reached base safely. 4 by walk, 1 by a hit by pitch, and 4 to a base hit. Those 2 games were ugly. But there was a third that was downright painful for supporters of the losing team and euphoric for the winners. Let's go back to the date of the Braves-Mariners game, September 6th, but we will go to the opposite coast this time. Oriole Park at Camden Yards, Baltimore, Maryland. Los Angeles Dodgers, Baltimore Orioles, the teams that faced off in the 1966 World Series. The starting pitcher for the Dodgers was Yoshinobu Yamamoto. He entered the 9th with a 3-run lead and a no-hitter. He had a no-hitter going. 3 outs away from history. He struck out Alex Jackson to lead off the inning and retired Kobe Mayo on a fly to center to bring himself 1 out away from history. All that stood in the way was Jackson Holliday. And that was the trigger point because Jackson Holliday homered with 2 outs in the 9th, making the no-hitter and the shutout vanish with 1 swing. But the win expectancy for the Dodgers, they were still in really good shape because it went from being 99 point something that rounded to 100 to being 99%. Dodgers manager Dave Roberts pulled Yamamoto. He was at 112 pitches. It was the most he had ever thrown in his career. It looked like he was spent. So, here's the cascade sequence. Blake Trinan comes in. Leadoff hitter, or the first hitter he faces, Jeremiah Jackson, double. Next hitter he faces, Gunnar Henderson, hits him with a pitch. While pitching to Ryan Mountcastle, a wild pitch advanced Jackson and Henderson to third and second. Mountcastle ultimately walked to load the bases. Then Colton Cowser walked to bring in a run. Now it's 3-2. In comes Tanner Scott with the bases loaded, 2 outs and a 1-run lead. This is a goose egg chance. All he has to do is get the final out and he'll get a goose egg. But he doesn't get the final out. Emmanuel Rivera singles up the middle, 2-run score. Both are inherited, so it's a meh to Tanner Scott. Orioles win, unbelievable fashion. They came back from a 3-run deficit in a no-hitter with 2 outs. The win expectancy swing. After the home run, the Dodgers' win expectancy was 99%. Within a span of 6 batters, they lost the game, so it went from 99 to 0 in a span of 6 batters. On a historical note, this is only the second time in Major League history a team was 1 out away from completing a no-hitter and lost the game without going to extra innings. The first time was Game 4 of the 1947 World Series when the Dodgers were on the beneficial end of this, when Bill Bevins of the Yankees lost his no-hit bid on Cookie Lavagetto's walk-off double for the Dodgers. Except there, Bevins didn't have a 3-run lead, he had a 1-run lead. Okay, enough focusing on the negatives. Let's look at some positives because we did have some dominant performances from relief units this week. It's time for another news segment, Deadbolt Delivered, where we honor the pens that slammed the door and threw away the key. Here are this week's door slams. Real quick, before we go through them, you're most likely wondering what the heck a door slam is. That's because it's a stat I recently developed, and this is my first time introducing it to the public. To get a door slam, a team must close out the game with at least 3 consecutive goose eggs. This string must be completely uninterrupted. There cannot be any broken eggs in there cannot be any mezz in there, and there cannot be any situation where the score differential is such that the pitcher doesn't get any of the 3. It must be goose egg, goose egg, goose egg, bang, 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 at least 3 in a row. Now, why is this important? If a team gets a door slam, they completely shut the opponent down en route to a narrow victory. When the last outs are on the line, it's lockdown only. The door slam celebrates those nights when the back end doesn't just protect the lead, it shuts the door, throws the deadbolt, and walks away with the key. This week, there were 15. Here they are in chronological order. On Thursday, September 4th, David Robertson, Matt Strahm, and Joan Duran notched one for the Philadelphia Phillies on the road against the Milwaukee Brewers in a 2-0 win. Friday, September 5th, there were 2. Brooks Raley, Tyler Rogers, and Edwin Diaz for the New York Mets against the Cincinnati Reds in a now critical for the wildcard race 5-4 win. And Sean Armstrong to Robert Garcia for the Texas Rangers in the 10th through 12th innings of their 4-3 walk-off win over the Astros, with Armstrong getting 2 of the 3 goose eggs. 2 more door slams came on Saturday, September 6th. Clayton Beeter to Jose A. Ferrer to Cole Henry for the Washington Nationals to cap off their 2-1 victory over the Chicago Cubs, and the vaunted Phillies trio of Robertson, Strahm, and Duran grabbed the Phillies' second one in 3 days to end their 4-2 road win over the Marlins. That was the day after the infamous Phillies Karen incident in left field. Sunday, September 7th, also saw 2. Grant Taylor, Jordan Leisure, and Mike Vasil at the end of the Chicago White Sox 6-4 road win over the Detroit Tigers. See, last place teams can get them too. And Matt Swanson, Jojo Romero, and Riley O'Brien of the St. Louis Cardinals in their 4-3 squeaker over the San Francisco Giants. There were also 2 on Monday, September 8th. Robertson to Strahm to Duran again for the Phillies, this time to capstone a crucial 1-0 win over the New York Mets, and Matt Brash to Eduard Bazardo to Andres Munoz to finish off a 4-2 Seattle Mariners win over the St. Louis Cardinals. On to Tuesday the 9th, where there were 4. The Tampa Bay Rays, Brian Baker, Edwin Uceta, Pete Fairbanks in their 5-4 win over the White Sox. Then Zach Maxwell to Connor Phillips to Emilio Pagan for the Cincinnati Reds in a 4-2 win over the Padres. Tyler Stevenson, the hero in that one, with a 2-run ninth-inning homer off Robert Suarez to break a tie. Another one from the Mariners, this time Gabe Spire joining Brash and Munoz to seal their 5-3 win over the Cardinals. And Joel Peguero to Joey Lucchesi to Ryan Walker, who closed out the 5-3 Giants win over the NL West rival Arizona Diamondbacks. And finally, on Wednesday, September 10th, there were also two. The Kansas City Royals had one of the two-person variety as Lucas Erceg fired off 2 goose eggs before Carlos Estevez finished the deal in their 4-3 win over the Cleveland Guardians, as well as Caleb Thielbar to Brad Keller to Andrew Kittredge of the Chicago Cubs when they closed their team's 3-2 win over the Atlanta Braves. In summary, 15 total door slams league-wide for the week. The Phillies and the Mariners led the pack with 3 and 2 respectively. September 9th was the busiest day, producing 4 of them, Rays, Reds, Mariners, Giants. September 4th was the quietest day with 1 door slam, that being the Phillies. There was an AL and NL balance. 8 AL teams and 7 NL teams made the list. By the way, year-long league leader through Wednesday, September 10th. It's a 2-team tie between the Padres and the Cubs. They each have 16. Yes, 16. That's how rare these are. We've played, around 150 games, and they have 16 to lead the league.
Here's a list of door slams grouped by team.
Coming up, the Tm Pwr Rankings. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Reliever Roundup and Bullpen Bonanza. Time now for the Team Relief Corps Power Rankings for Week 23. These rankings include every pitch thrown in relief by a player wearing that team's uniform, excluding position pitchers, from the beginning of play on August 1st, which was the day after the trade deadline, and the end of play Wednesday, September 10th. We are using this starting point because a lot of teams' rosters changed dramatically at the trade deadline. And this way, we'll get a better idea of which team's relief unit really is the toughest nut to crack as we head toward October. This table shows the scoring breakdown. Teams are ranked in clutch, run prevention, base runner prevention, and command, weighted as shown. The final score determines the ranking. 0 means right at league average. Positive is better than average. Negative is below average. A score of 100 means the team is 100% better than the league average. A score of 50 is 50% better. A score of negative 50 is 50% lower, and so on. Each whole number equals 1 percentage point. We will start with the number 30 team and work our way to number 1. American League teams will appear in red. National League teams will appear in blue. The first number in parentheses after the team name is their rank within their specific league, National League or American League. The number after the comma shows the change in their Major League rank from Week 22's post-deadline rankings to Week 23's post-deadline rankings. Here we go. First, a look at what the power rankings would be if we included the full season. Here is last week, Week 22, which ran through the end of play on Wednesday, September 3rd. And here they are for this week, Week 23. Before I show you the full league rankings, though, here's the scoring table with the 4 score components listed. Notice here, however, that there is a column called DS between the team name and the clutch score. That's the door slam. Here now are the full league rankings. Now the post-trade deadline rankings. First for last week, Week 22. And now we will reveal the post-deadline rankings for this week, Week 23. Our first group is Pray for a Blowout Win. At number 30, the Toronto Blue Jays slipping 1 spot to negative 20.8. Number 29 is the New York Mets inching up 1 spot with negative 18.5. Number 28 is the other New York team, the Yankees, down 2 with a score of negative 15.8. Next is Stock Up on Tums. At number 27, the Minnesota Twins falling 6 spots with a score of negative 11.1. Number 26, the Miami Marlins down 2 spots with negative 7.2. Number 25, the Pittsburgh Pirates, who dropped 3 spots with a score of negative 2.5. And number 24 is the San Francisco Giants down 1 spot with a score of negative 2.3. In lots of work to do, we have 5 teams. Number 23 is the Texas Rangers, who climbed 5 spots with a score of negative 0.9. Number 22 is the Los Angeles Angels, down 4 spots with a score of negative 0.1. Number 21 is their neighbors to the northwest on Interstate 5 by about 45 minutes, the Los Angeles Dodgers, who climbed 4 spots with a score of 0.4. Number 20, the San Diego Padres, who fell 3 spots with a score of 0.9. And number 19, the Chicago White Sox, who jumped 8 spots with a score of 1.7. Slightly below average features 3 clubs this week. Number 18 is the Arizona Diamondbacks, who fell 4 spots with a score of 4.1. Number 17, the Baltimore Orioles, who climbed 3 spots with a score of 9.20, rounded to 9.2. And number 16, the Athletics, who fell 5 spots after a score of 9.22, also rounded to 9.2. In the average, number 15, the Colorado Rockies, who tumbled 10 spots with a score of 14.5. And number 14, the St. Louis Cardinals, who climbed 5 spots with a score of 15.5. Slightly above average has 4 teams. At number 13, the Milwaukee Brewers, who fell 5 spots with a score of 19.0. Number 12, the Tampa Bay Rays, who held steady at 12th with a score of 19.7. Number 11, the Cleveland Guardians, who climbed 2 spots with a score of 20.8. And number 10, their Ohio brethren, the Cincinnati Reds, who rose 6 spots with a score of 20.9. The good has 2 teams. Number 9, the Boston Red Sox, who fell 6 spots with a score of 26.2. And number 8, the Chicago Cubs, who climbed 1 spot with a score of 27.3. The very good is a 3-team group. Number 7, the Washington Nationals, who remained unchanged in their ranking after a score of 31.7. Number 6, the Seattle Mariners, who surged 9 places with a score of 32.9. And at number 5, the Detroit Tigers, who fell 4 spots with a score of 34.4. Better take an early lead has 2 teams this week. Number 4, the Philadelphia Phillies, who climbed 6 spots with a score of 39.4. And number 3, the Houston Astros, their opponents in the 1980 NLCS and the 2022 World Series, who climbed 1 spot with a score of 40.6. And finally, the outliers. Number 2, the Atlanta Braves, who held in 2nd place with a score of 49.7. And our new number 1, the Kansas City Royals, who climbed 5 spots after scoring 50.8. The biggest gainers in this edition are the Mariners, who up 9, the White Sox up 8, the Reds and Phillies each up 6, and the Royals, Cardinals, and Rangers each up 5. The steepest drops came from the Rockies, down 10, the Red Sox and Twins each down 6, the Athletics and Brewers each down 5, and the Diamondbacks, Tigers, and Angels each down 4. Here is each team's score separated by league and split into the 4 categories. Once again, between the team name and clutch, I've included door slams. These totals, however, are post-trade deadline only. Note there are still a few zeros in there. Before we end this segment, here's a look at some scatter plots. Week 22, full season. Week 22, post-trade deadline. Week 23, full season. And Week 23, post-trade deadline. Now an update here for the playoff contenders. The 3 division leaders in the American League as of end of play on Sunday, September 14th, were the Toronto Blue Jays, Detroit Tigers, and Seattle Mariners. The Blue Jays, for the full season, rank 11th in the American League, and post-trade deadline, they are 15th out of 15. I'm going to do league-only ranks because that's what matters the most in their league-only playoffs. Okay, the Tigers, for full season, are 9th, and post-trade deadline, they're 3rd. The Mariners, full season, are 3rd in the American League, and post-trade deadline, they're 4th. Now for the 3 teams that are currently in wildcard position in the American League. The New York Yankees are 14th for full season, and 14th in the American League post-trade deadline. Both of them are 14th. Boston Red Sox for full season are 2nd in the American League. That should help them quite a bit. And post-trade deadline, they're 5th. So a little bit lower, but 5th is still really good. The Astros, they've been great in both. For full season, they're 4th. Post-trade deadline, they're 2nd. And keep in mind, they've been without Josh Hader for a few weeks now. They may not even get him back. We're hoping they get him back because we always want to see everybody on the field and healthy, but they may not get him back. So this is definitely something to watch. Now for the hopefuls, the teams that don't currently hold wild card positions, but are still close enough that they can catch somebody. The Rangers for the full season are 8th, and post-trade deadline, they're 12th. The Guardians for full season, they're 1st, but remember, they are without Emmanuel Clase, who is still suspended as the league does its gambling investigation. And post-trade deadline, they are 6th. The Royals, full season, are 5th in the American League, but post-trade deadline, they're 1st. Now for the National League. First, the division leaders, the Brewers, who are already in the playoffs. For the full season, they're 9th. Post-trade deadline, they're 6th. Again, these ranks are within the National League only. The Phillies, who are also in. For the full season, they're 7th in the National League, so middle of the pack, but post-trade deadline, they're 2nd. Picking up Juan Duran has really helped that team. And then the Dodgers are 11th, both full season and post-trade deadline. The 3 teams currently holding wildcard positions are the Cubs, who are, for the full season, 2nd in the National League, but post-trade deadline are 4th. The Padres, who full season are 1st in the National League, but post-trade deadline have been 10th. They've struggled a little bit recently. And the Mets, who full season are 6th, and post-trade deadline are 15th. Now, there are 4 teams that aren't currently in a wild card position but are still alive. The Giants, for the full season, they're 4th in the National League, but 12th post-trade deadline. The Diamondbacks, who full season have been 15th in the National League, but post-trade deadline have been 9th. Now, how are they 9th? Some of you Diamondback fans are asking. Here's the thing. Yes, they lead the league in broken eggs. Post-trade deadline. They lead the league. But they also lead the league in goose eggs. They've been in a lot of close games. They're battle-tested, but their ratio is 1.9. Thing is, the Mets' ratio is 1.3. Now, the Reds, full season, they're 10th. Post-trade deadline, they're 5th. And the Cardinals, full season, they're 8th. Post-trade deadline, they're 7th. Up next, our individual power rankings for Week 23. Don't close that video yet. Welcome back to Reliever Roundup and Bullpen Bonanza. It is time for the individual power rankings for Week 23. Statistics include every game through the end of play on Wednesday, September 10th. To qualify for the rankings, there is a minimum of 28 relief appearances. And for the Goose Egg per Broken Egg Plus statistic, which forms 2/3 of the clutch category we use to rate setup men and closers, there is a minimum of 14 combined Goose Eggs and Broken Eggs. As always, the full breakdown of our ranking methods can be found via the link in the description box below this video. And a note on the roles. If a team is using co-closers, we list them both as closers. If they're listed as having a closer by committee, every member of that committee is listed as a setup man. Here we go. First, the American League middle relievers. Number 10 with 13.7 from the Athletics, Justin Sterner. Number 9 with 16.0 from the Texas Rangers, Chris Martin. Number 8 with 16.8 from the Red Sox, Justin Wilson. Number 7 with 20.3 from the Royals, Taylor Clark. Number 6 with 20.8 from the Rays, Griffin Jax. In 5th with 21.1 from the Houston Astros, Steven Okert. Number 4 with 24.4, also from the Rays, Brian Baker. Number 3 with 31.1 from the Yankees, Fernando Cruz. In 2nd with 31.9 from the Mariners, Gabe Spire. And number 1 with 35.8 from the Blue Jays, Braden Fisher. Now, Yankee fans who are yelling, how can you have Cruz 3rd? You saw what he did. Guys, this is for the full season. This is their whole body of work. This is not just one night, okay? Moving on to the National League middle relievers now. Number 10 with a score of 9.4 from the San Francisco Giants, Joey Lucchesi. Why 9.4 in the top 10? Because a lot of guys are hurt. I mean, a lot. And we don't rank injured guys. Number 9 with 9.8 from the Philadelphia Phillies, Tanner Banks. Number 8 with 11.2 from the Mets, Gregory Soto. In 7th with 12.2 from the Brewers, Grant Anderson. Number 6 with 16.8 from the Braves, Pierce Johnson. Number 5 with 21.9 from the St. Louis Cardinals, Matt Swanson. In 4th with 23.6 from the Padres, Jeremiah Estrada. In 3rd with 23.9 from the Dodgers, Jack Dreyer. In second with 27.8, the man who used to have a ticker because of his impressive consecutive scoreless appearance streak that has ended, from the Cubs, Drew Pomeranz. And in first with 33.5 points, also from the Padres, Adrian Morejon. Turning to the American League setup men, in 10th with 63.5 from the Rays, Edwin Uceta. In 9th with 65.3 from the Yankees, Luke Weaver. In 8th with 65.9 from the Blue Jays, Sir Anthony Dominguez. In 7th with 80.0 from the Astros, Brian King. In 6th with 87.1 from the Guardians, Hunter Gaddis. In 5th, 94.8 is the score. Rangers are the team. Phil Maton is the pitcher. In 4th with 95.0 from the Red Sox, Justin Slayton. In 3rd with 95.7 from the Seattle Mariners, Matt Brash. In 2nd with 115.9 from the Royals, Lucas Erceg. And in 1st with 125.6 also from the Red Sox, Garrett Whitlock. Now their National League counterparts, the National League setup men. In 10th with 61.5 from the Brewers, Jared Koenig. In 9th with 66.6 from the Braves, Dylan Lee. In 8th with 68.7 from the Cardinals, Jojo Romero. In 7th with 73.0 from the Mets, Tyler Rogers. In 6th with 81.4 from the Phillies, Matt Strahm. In 5th with 83.0 from the Marlins, Ronnie Enriquez. In 4th with 95.4 also from the Marlins, Calvin Fauché. In 3rd with 96.4 from the Reds, Tony Santillan. In 2nd with 122.6, the only player guest we've ever had on the show so far, from the Padres, Mason Miller. And in 1st with 137.4 points from the Chicago Cubs, Brad Keller. Now for the American League closers. In 5th with 129.7 from the Guardians, Cade Smith, who has done yeoman's work filling in for Clase. In 4th with 130.9, one head of the two-headed monster the Tigers have at their back end, Kyle Finnegan. In 3rd with 131.6, his teammate, Will Vest. In 2nd with 157.5 from the Red Sox, Aroldis Chapman. And in 1st once again with 222.6 points from the Mariners, Andres Munoz. Now the National League closers. In 5th with 97.6 from the Nationals, Jose A. Ferrer. In 4th with 117.8 from the Phillies, Joan Duran. In 3rd with 149.6 from the Pirates, Dennis Santana. In 2nd with 151.2 from the Padres, Robert Suarez. And number 1, despite the performance of the rest of his relief unit, he's still an absolute stud at the end of the game with 232.2 points from the Mets, Edwin Diaz. That concludes this installment of Reliever Roundup and Bullpen Bonanza from Sport Relay. Join us next time when we will go through Week 24. I'm Evan Thompson. Thanks for watching, and we will see you then. Thank you for watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like. Click subscribe so you'll never miss an episode of this show or of our other show, Trade Trees. Tell your friends and baseball contacts. If you haven't done so yet, consider buying my books, A Complete History of the Major League Baseball Playoffs, Volume 1 and Volume 2. There are links in the description box below this video. And finally, bookmark and regularly visit sportrelay.com. Until next time, this is Evan Thompson saying so long for now.